What's up, everyone? Welcome to Surfside PPC Podcast, episode number 17. So first, to get started, we are going to start running some campaigns in here and follow along on the podcast with some of the campaigns that I'm running for Surfside PPC. Some of that will also be premium content, but obviously we'll release a lot of that for free directly through this podcast. So today's topic is going to be A/B testing. So really just one question, and really just want to cover Google Ads A/B testing. So you can A/B test in Google Ads, Meta Ads. There's really only so much you can A/B test. And I would say my thinking on A/B testing has changed a lot over the years with, more AI and quicker learning through Google Ads and Google being able to figure out what is actually driving results much quicker. So let's get into the video. I'm going to put in the question now. And, after the question, I will answer it and go through all the different things related to A/B testing or split testing in Google Ads.
What are the best ways to split test in Google Ads? Can I run a true A/B split test effectively? What are things that I can test to optimize my performance?
Okay, we have our question, and essentially it's just how do we split test effectively to improve our results? And ultimately what we're trying to do is look at some of the different key elements in here, and you can almost go through some of these and say, okay, we have ads. We can split test between ads. Now I'm going to use the word split testing a lot here, and I would say it's not necessarily a split test what I'm talking about. I will give you examples of split testing, but ultimately the way that I view Google at this point is that Google wants us as advertisers and businesses to basically give Google a lot of assets to work with. Assets are going to be your headlines, your description lines, your images, your site links, your call outs, structured snippets, basically anything that's useful you should have as an asset. You can also use headline assets, description line assets. You can do new headline, description line assets that actually match ongoing promotions you're running. You can use promotions. You can import prices for the actual, product services that you have. Connect your Google business profile or Google business profiles. So all of this helps Google really build your advertisements with this set of assets. So I actually don't view it as much as straight up A/B testing. And I don't think that's how you should view it either. I think in your assets performance here, what Google's looking for, and I don't have anything in this last 30 days, so there's not going to be anything showing, but in your performance, you'll actually have a breakdown of all of these different types of assets that we have. And, my thought process is if we have 0 YouTube videos compared to the advertiser who has 50 YouTube videos. And it's a big difference, obviously, but that one with 50 YouTube videos might be saying, yeah, we're running a ton of video ads. 3 or 4 of them are doing really well. This other one who has 1 or 2 or 0 is getting nothing in terms of video. So just a whole channel in terms of YouTube, Google Display Network video that's not being used as well. And with more audience data in Google Ads, I do think kind of understanding the whole funnel is really important. And that's why getting too caught up in A/B testing and looking at direct performance from one to the other isn't really the right way to look at it. But what I prepared is this document of some of the different things that we can actually split test. So this is specific for my episode 17. Pretty cool. I could put together these quick HTML pages and start uploading them, based on the podcast content and everything like that. So Surfside PPC Podcast, episode number 17, some of the different things we can split test. So starting with ad copy, this to me, the best way to do this isn't to say, let's run one ad with 15 headlines and, 15 or 4 description lines or, in a performance max, let's just make sure we fill everything out. I think where you're much better off is if I'm running ads for Google Ads Consulting and we go into that ad group, what makes a lot more sense is me running multiple different ads throughout this. Putting my pricing in there, putting different ad copy in there. I think this will go into our next thing. This is also testing landing pages. So a lot of my testing actually happens within the ads in the ad groups by using a couple different landing pages and using different ad copy in the ads. You can run 3 responsive search ads per ad group. So if you do have really tightly themed ad groups and you're running different ads throughout those really tightly themed ad groups, and then you're also testing a couple different landing pages throughout them, basically you're giving Google different things to test as far as where traffic's going, what people are searching. I guess not really what people are searching in this case, but what people are seeing in terms of the advertisement. So after the search, that whole experience is really what we're trying to optimize. To me, it's not saying let's do a direct A/B test. You can do, one ad, duplicate it, change the final URL for that second ad. And I've done that before, and that's really a true A/B test for landing pages, as long as they're getting the same amount of clicks, impressions, and you have a good enough set of data to do that. It is much easier to A/B test in large accounts that are spending a lot, and it's a lot more difficult to A/B test in accounts that just don't spend nearly as much. So ultimately, what we want to do is look at, can we create more sets of headlines? Can we pin specific headlines within our ads? So if we go in here, can we pin specific headlines within our ads? Do dynamic keyword insertion ads work a little bit better? Can we use location insertion? Can we use a countdown? So maybe I have some limited time promotion. Those are the types of things. And you can see I have pinned headlines in here, which I do sometimes just to make sure it fits exactly what people are searching. But ultimately, these are the different types of things that you can try to test, is just different headlines. Scroll down here, different description lines, upload as many images as possible. I'm not following my own advice. It should have 20 there. Business name, business logo, get as many site links as possible. Now, this was a pretty quick campaign I built. I'm actually going to create a couple new campaigns, and that I'm going to go through on like a whole video series. So that's what my plan is, to do that on a whole video series to make it almost like a free mini course that I'm going to release through Google or through YouTube, excuse me. But for this one, for split testing, it's really, creating more ads is a good thing. Using additional landing pages is a good thing as well. If you have 2 pages on your website that can fit for an individual service, like if you're, for local service companies, sometimes your homepage can convert pretty well. And then you have a specific page for, this is the actual service we're providing in this city. And that's actually also a really important thing. So those are going to be the 2 things that really you can test the most. Landing pages, I think, also goes along with offers. So with landing pages, it's really, can we do 2 sets of offers, one with a promotion, one with just, hey, give us a call today, and see if there's any difference with those. And really, you're just looking at conversion rates for landing pages. On the ad side, you're looking at click-through rates. You're looking at which headlines, description lines actually lead to conversion. So you're looking at really improving conversion rates and click-through rates with your ad copy and your landing pages. And as we scroll down here, next is going to be campaign level settings. So bidding strategies can always be a big test. Maximize clicks in the long run is not going to perform better than Target CPA or target return on ad spend. In the short term, it can help you gather data and target some of the right keywords. But really, with campaign level settings, you want to get to a smart bidding strategy of maximize conversions, target CPA, maximize conversion value, target return on ad spend. You can test different bid types. It is getting harder to test bids at times because sometimes you raise your target CPA by 20% and all you see is your cost per conversion goes up and there's really no added volume coming in. Sometimes you lower it by 20% and then you see volume drop. Cost per conversion might go down a little bit, but then the client's like, why are we getting less leads? So you're really trying to balance, what the right target CPA setting is. That's why it's good to actually have a good communication setting with your client where they say, hey, this is what I'm willing to pay per conversion. This is really what I would like to pay per conversion. The other thing is testing your match types. So as far as keyword targeting, broad, phrase, and exact, I do think keyword targeting, I mentioned this in an earlier podcast, it's a slowly dying, a slow death. Really, we're going to have keyword targeting, but it's going to turn into using more broad match and then just making sure you have audience data and conversion data. So Google can ultimately find new customers and find, existing customers that might be repeat. Ad rotation settings, not something I change too often. Budget allocation is important. If you're running 2, 3, 4 different campaigns, where does that money go? What is actually driving the results in the account? And those are all really important things to understand the success in your account. Test who should see the ads. So this is one of those where audience, again, I'm not testing as much as an individual audience as much as I'm building these big audience signals and basically saying, what is working the best? I think the most important thing is making sure that you upload customer match segments, customer lists, which is your customer match segments, but it could be email lists, it could be, connecting a YouTube channel, it could be connecting the website, making sure that every single last piece of these are the people that are visiting my website and interacting with my content, making sure that they're all seeing your advertising is really important. So testing the channel mix inside Google, I will say I'm running a lot more Performance Max than I used to. And you wonder what is going to happen with search Performance Max and different campaign types in Google Ads long-term with AI. I think search, you're always going to have search, and that's going to turn into more search with AI Max. I do have a really good strategy for that. And then search with Performance Max. And my plan is to essentially try to build my business around some of these different strategies. And that's been part of the reason why I switched to Shopify, just because it does take into account, people purchasing on the website and, some of that information really, really useful. It makes it a lot easier that way. So testing your campaign types, testing, we went over budget allocation, standard shopping versus Performance Max. I will say I'm seeing really good performance out of Performance Max recently, so it is one of those campaigns that's improving with time. And it's one that I'm running in a lot more accounts because it drives a lot of clicks. Search can sometimes feel very limited. And, it's like one of those where if you're running ads for a roofer and they're like, hey, we're trying to get a couple jobs, it's not like they need 10,000 jobs unless it's a massive roofing company, but a roofing company in a smaller market is, you're trying to just keep your crews busy with a job every time a job ends, you got a new job. If you have multiple crews, obviously you have multiple crews running. But sometimes on the search side, it's like, okay, I'm spending $50 per click. I'm only getting, 20 clicks a month or 30 clicks a month. And it's like, it's still costing me a couple $1,000s. And it's, sometimes you're like, I feel like I can get more out of my local market than just trying to go after these really expensive keywords. So testing Performance Max alongside search, I almost wonder if we're going to be running multiple search campaigns, multiple Performance Max campaigns. It's been kind of a little bit more of my strategy recently, but it's an ongoing see what works and keep going towards it. So testing supporting elements, this to me, the assets, site links, call out, structured snippets, call assets, just get them all up there, do a lot of them. There's no downside to running multiple structured snippets, running 30, 40 call outs, running 10, 15, 20 site links if they make sense. So there's no problem with running supporting elements. And Google is also doing a better job of actually taking those supporting elements and making sure that they match the actual advertisement itself, just the improvement of AI very quickly. Test where and when ads should appear, geo-targeting radius for specific locations, ad scheduling, day parting. So this is one you could always test and just see, okay, how do we work on different devices? Are there days that are performing horribly? Are there locations dragging down our budget? Again, smart bidding does fix a lot of this, but it's one of those where testing a lot, understanding what's working does help you with really getting the most out of your campaign. So starting with the highest leverage test, high spend campaigns first, high intent services first, pages with enough conversion volume, tests with one variable clearly isolated. I don't do that nearly as much as I used to. It's just the changes within Google are, I don't want to say throw a bunch of things in the wall and see what sticks, but really make smart decisions in terms of what ads we're creating different headlines, description lines, testing different offers, testing different landing page designs. Those things are going to help improve everything. So how to test well, one variable at a time, real control, give it enough data, match metrics to the type of test, check every combination, document what you learn. So practical framework, test the ad message and call to action, test landing page friction and trust elements, bidding, match types, audience layers. When you're in here in the Google Ads campaign, so your ads are going to be a big portion of where you're actually testing. And then the other thing is just going to be, okay, under our insights and reports, let's see when and where ads showed, how they perform on devices. Where ads showed isn't. So basically for matched locations, maybe we'll have it here. Yeah, so we could see matched locations to say, okay, what cities are we showing in? There's not enough data for this to make a real determination. But, if you learn over time, hey, this is, oh, wow, Lakewood Ranch is driving really good results for us. If that's the case, then, that's something that you could potentially go after. So we'll come back to all campaigns over here. And yeah, so essentially, most important thing is when you're testing, it's more about feeding in really good conversion data and first-party audience data into Google Ads, and then using the right targeting, and just ultimately, as you get conversion data in, testing all of these different variables throughout the process. And that's just a matter of analyzing results, seeing what's working, and, using smart bidding strategies to ultimately automate some of this in terms of, there's the manual portion of Google Ads with changing bids and doing all that on a granular level is done. And that's a good thing. So you're able to kind of do more within an account in terms of, what you're targeting, what you're doing. And I do think where Google might shift is to more of a creative, being able to create videos, images, even put out text ads, offers, and really line those things up as quickly as possible and as effectively as possible for your business so that you're actually staying on target with like a content calendar and some of those types of seasonality that you're running. So if you have any questions about this, please leave them in the comments section. This will conclude Surfside PPC Podcast episode 17. Best way to support the podcast, share, like, subscribe, leave a comment, leave a review. All those things would be really helpful. But I appreciate all the support, trying to grow this and get some more listeners on the podcast, regrow the YouTube channel. So we'll be active and pretty busy with creating a lot of content. So again, thank you for listening, and start putting up some more assets and testing every single last possible thing you can in Google Ads to get the best results.